Greetings, Mavericks and new viewers. Tonight, direct and live from the Maverick News Network World Studios. This is Maverick News with Rick Walker.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Rick Walker. Welcome back to the Maverick News Channel. We are live and finally firing on most cylinders. We are up and streaming to most of the channels, platforms, social media platforms that we broadcast to, but we are having some pretty frustrating technical problems tonight, internet issues. So I hope everything works out okay. Everything's been lagging, and it has been a real chore just to get the broadcast set up tonight. So if we have disruptions, I apologize in advance. I also apologize to the people who were probably searching for the broadcast on our secondary, or channel number 2 on Rumble. It was not properly connected for some reason, but it's up and running now. And we're not on Wimkin, not connected there, but we are on Twitch and Twitter and Rumble and BitChute and YouTube. Oh, and that's the other thing. While I'm on the subject, if you guys could do me a ginormous favor, let me do this. We have more than one YouTube channel. And if you guys could subscribe to, I'm not going to do it that way. Oh, maybe I can't. Yes, I can. I'm going to try to put the link here to one of our other YouTube channels in the chat. And if you guys could subscribe over there, right there, that's the channel. And in fact, I'll put the link to the actual broadcast. Yes. I'm going to put it in the chat now. If you guys would consider subscribing and even watching over on that channel, we might have a shot at getting things back to normal on YouTube. Maverick Live, there's the link. I will put it in the Rumble chat as well. Donald Trump is about to speak in Doral, Florida. And I think we're going to pick that feed up live momentarily. But here's our other Maverick channel, which I have repurposed. And I'm throwing it over there. So yeah, please consider doing that. I'd really appreciate it. And thumbs up on all the channels. We need thumbs up tonight. Try and get this social media thing rolling properly here on YouTube, Rumble, YouTube Rumble. Yeah, I don't like YouTube because of all the you-know-what, but just censorship and everything, but whatever. We have to live with it, and a lot of people prefer to watch on YouTube, so who am I to argue? Give the people what they want. So we're going to pick up that speech with Trump. He's about to arrive any minute there, so we'll try to pick some of that up for you. What else do we have? NATO summit, where Trudeau is being portrayed as a cheapskate. Yeah, he's under fire there. Biden addressing NATO, but the focus wasn't so much on what he was saying. It was on whether he was going to be able to speak at all. and mounting pressure today again for him to step down while he double, triple, quadruple, quintuples down and says, I ain't a going no place. I'm staying in the race. I'm in it to win it. I don't know if that's possible at this point, given his disastrous debate performance, but there's another one coming up, and people seem to be doubling, tripling, quadrupling, quintupling down on Joe Biden. They want to keep him in there. Some of the Democrats, it's a split party at this time, so they've got a lot of fence mending to do, I think, and soul searching and strategizing. And while Trudeau is in Washington for the NATO summit, they're still hating on him at the Calgary Stampede. I'll show you what I mean coming up. Oh, Zelensky also had a few things to say about the NATO summit today, and the White House press secretary on the hot seat, being asked again about Biden's mental state. There was also a committee on education and the workforce held a hearing today on unions and anti-Semitism. We'll bring you a couple of highlights from that. It was an interesting hearing. It was lengthy. There was one guy in particular, Glenn Tauman, from the National Right to Work Foundation. I'd say his testimony today was most notable, and I'll tell you why. It's not just about anti-Semitism. It's about the politics, the ethics, the laws that surround labor unions, and he kind of exposed today the underbelly of collectivism. So I'll explain that. What else do we have? I guess that's pretty much it in a nutshell. Oh, and I'm going to show you an attack on the Crimea Bridge. And then it'll make you think as well as focus. Michelle Obama is not going to run either. She ain't going to run. She's not going to replace Joe Biden. We have it on good authority that that's highly, highly, highly unlikely to happen. We'll have all that. And Donald Trump on the other side of this.
You know, someone very profoundly once said many years ago that if fascism ever comes to America, it'll come in the name of liberalism.
Well, I think it's time we ask ourselves if we still know the freedoms that were intended for us by the Founding Fathers. If we lose freedom here, there's no place to escape to. This is the last stand on earth.
The entire world is watching.
Every dictator, every crazy dictator in the world is watching.
The world is watching. On TV, the entire world is watching. On social media.
But the entire world is watching, and yes, they are seeing what we have apparently bravely been willing to say that others are thinking.
Stand for freedom. Literally stand for freedom. Let's get this done. The entire world is watching.
We're at war with the most dangerous enemy that has ever faced mankind in his long climb from the swamp to the stars.
Maverick News. Maverick News. Maverick News.
Let me have more control of my own destiny.
The world is watching.
I'm looking. First of all, thank you everybody that has gone over to the other YouTube channel to subscribe. But this is making me. It's making me laugh. Okay, Maverick is has said, I don't know why this is just striking me as so funny, but he says Trudeau has been penetrated by Klaus, literally. I don't know. Why is that so funny to me tonight? I don't know. Just was it last night we heard Whoopi Goldberg talking about Joe Biden pooping his pants, and then about 3 or 4 nights ago, maybe a week ago, we were laughing about Joe Biden pooping his pants. Now, and I mean I hate to even bring it up, but this is like a real thing, and people are referring to the Prime Minister as Trudeau. And like, what this is all crap. Oh my God. Oh, but I don't know. Just that Merrick, your comment just makes me laugh. Make me laugh tonight. I don't even. Maybe I need help. Joe Biden seems to need some help. Oh, let's check in. Is Trump there yet? Not quite. Okay. Jeez. Oh my. Ah. Okay. Let's get serious, shall we? But where do we want to start? We want to start, I guess, with let's start with Biden at the NATO thing. Now, again, I've been having a lot of internet trouble, and this stuff coming out of Washington has been glitchy. So I'll run a little bit of this, but I hope it runs properly. Okay, let's give this a whirl, shall we? Here's Biden addressing NATO today.
Welcome. In 1949, the leaders of 12 countries, including President Truman, came together in this very room. History was watching. It had been 4 years since the surrender of the Axis powers and the end of the most devastating war the world had ever known. Here, these 12 leaders gathered to make a sacred pledge to defend each other against aggression, provide their collective security, and to answer threats as one, because they knew to prevent future wars, to protect democracies, to lay the groundwork for lasting peace and prosperity, they needed a new approach. They needed to combine their strengths. They needed an alliance. And here they signed the Washington Treaty and created the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, the single greatest, most effective defensive alliance in the history of the world. Mr. Secretary General, leaders of NATO countries, foreign and defense ministers, representatives from partner nations and the European Union, and members of Congress, distinguished guests, welcome to the 2024 NATO Summit. It's a pleasure. It's a pleasure to host you in this milestone year, to look back with pride at all we've achieved and look ahead to our shared future with strength and with resolve. Together, we rebuilt Europe from the ruins of war, held high the torch of liberty during long decades of the Cold War. When former adversaries became fellow democracies, we welcomed them into the alliance. When war broke out in the Balkans, we intervened to restore peace and stop ethnic cleansing. And when the United States was attacked on September 11th, our NATO allies, all of you, stood with us, invoking Article 5 for the first time in NATO history, treating an attack on us as an attack on all of us, a breathtaking display of friendship that the American people will never, ever forget. Through all this history, when great changes occurred, people would ask, can NATO adapt? And every time we proved we could adapt, and we did, evolving our strategies to stay ahead of threats, reaching out to new partners to increase our effectiveness. And here with us today are countries from the Indo-Pacific region. They're here because they have a stake in our success, and we have a stake in theirs. Today, NATO is more powerful than ever, 32 nations strong. For years, Finland and Sweden were among our closest partners. Now they have chosen to officially join NATO, and because of the power and meaning of Article 5 guarantee, that's the reason. It was the most important aspect of the alliance in 1949, and it is still the most important aspect. I'd also note Finland and Sweden joined the alliance not just because their leaders sought it, because their citizens called for it in overwhelming numbers. Remember, NATO's character is fundamentally democratic, always has been and always must continue to be. And today, NATO is better resourced than it ever has been. I want to pause on this because it's significant. In the year 2020, the year I was elected president, only 9 NATO allies are spending 2% of their defense GDP on defense. This year, 23 will spend at least 2%.
Yeah, that's because Trump was.
And some will spend more than that. And the remaining countries that have not yet reached that milestone will get there soon. This remarkable progress, proof that our commitment is broad and deep, that we're ready, that we're willing, we're able to deter aggression and defend every inch of NATO territory across every domain: land, air, sea, cyber, and space. My friends, it's good that we're stronger than ever, because this moment in history calls for our collective strength. Autocrats want to overturn global order, which is by and large kept for nearly 80 years and counting. Terrorist groups continue to plot evil schemes to cause mayhem and chaos and suffering. In Europe, Putin's war of aggression against Ukraine continues, and Putin wants nothing less than Ukraine's total subjugation, to end Ukraine's democracy, to destroy Ukraine's culture, and to wipe Ukraine off the map. And we know Putin won't stop at Ukraine, but make no mistake, Ukraine can and will stop Putin. Especially with our full collective support. And they have our full support. Even before Russian bombs were falling in Ukraine, the alliance acted. I ordered the U.S. reinforcements at NATO's eastern flank. More troops, more aircraft, more capabilities. And now the United States has more than 100,000 troops on the continent of Europe. NATO moved swiftly as well, not only reinforcing the 4 existing battle groups in the east, but also adding 4 more in Bulgaria, Hungary, Romania, and Slovakia, essentially doubling NATO's strength on the eastern flank. Together, we've built a global coalition to stand with Ukraine. Together, we provided significant economic and humanitarian assistance. And together, we've supplied Ukraine with weapons it needs to defend itself: tanks, armored fighting vehicles, air defense systems, long-range missiles, and millions of munitions. The United States and nearly 24 allied partners have signed a bilateral security agreements with Ukraine, and more countries will follow. Today, I'm announcing the historic donation of air defense equipment for Ukraine. The United States, Germany, the Netherlands, Romania, and Italy will provide Ukraine with the equipment for 5 additional strategic air defense systems. And in the coming months, the United States and our partners intend to provide Ukraine with dozens of additional tactical air defense systems. The United States will make sure that when we export critical air defense interceptors, Ukraine goes to the front of the line. They will get this assistance before anyone else gets it. All told, Ukraine will receive hundreds of additional interceptors over the next year, helping protect Ukrainian cities against Russian missiles, Ukrainian troops facing air attacks on the front lines. Make no mistake, Russia is failing in this war. More than 2 years into Putin's war of choice, his losses are staggering. More than 350,000 Russian troops dead or wounded. Nearly 1 million Russians, many of them young people, have left Russia because they no longer see a future in Russia. And Kyiv, remember, fellas and ladies, was supposed to fall in 5 days, remember? Was still standing 2.5 years later and will continue to stand. All of the allies knew that before this war, Putin thought NATO would break. Today, NATO is stronger than it's ever been in its history. When this senseless war began, Ukraine was a free country. Today, it is still a free country. And the war will end with Ukraine remaining a free and independent country. Russia will not prevail. Ukraine will prevail. Ladies and gentlemen, this is a pivotal moment for Europe, for the transatlantic community, and I might add for the world. Let's remember, the fact that NATO remains the bulwark of global security did not happen by accident. It wasn't inevitable. Again and again at critical moments, we chose unity over disunion, progress over retreat, freedom over tyranny, hope over fear. Again and again we stood behind our shared vision of a peaceful and prosperous transatlantic community. Here at this summit, we gather to proclaim NATO is ready and able to secure that vision today and well into the future. Let me say this. An overwhelming bipartisan majority of Americans understand that NATO makes us all safer. The fact that both Democratic and Republican parties are represented here today is a testament to that fact. The American people know that all the progress we've made in the past 75 years has happened behind the shield of NATO. And the American people understand what would happen if there was no NATO. Another war in Europe, American troops fighting and dying, dictators spreading chaos, economic collapse, catastrophe. Americans, they know we're stronger with our friends, and we understand this is a sacred obligation. As President Reagan put it, and I quote, "If our fellow democracies are not secure, we cannot be secure. If you are threatened, we are threatened. If you're not at peace, we cannot be at peace." Reagan knew it then, and we know it now. Our nations will continue to keep faith with what we pledged in years to come. Now, if you'll indulge me, I'd like to end my remarks in a slightly unusual way. NATO is an alliance of nations, but also made up of leaders. And one person in particular has done an extraordinary job leading NATO for the last decade. Secretary General Stoltenberg, would he come forward? So much of the progress we've made in the alliance is thanks to the Secretary. He's a man of integrity and intellectual rigor, a calm temperament in a moment of crisis, a consummate diplomat who works with leaders across the political spectrum and always finds a way to keep us moving forward. Secretary, you've guided this alliance through one of the most consequential periods in its history. I realize, I was talking to your wife, I personally asked you to extend your service. Forgive me. And you put your own plans on hold. When the Russian war in Ukraine began, you didn't hesitate. Today, NATO is stronger, smarter, and more energized than when you began. And 1 billion people across Europe and North America, indeed the whole world, will reap the rewards of your labor for years to come in the form of security, opportunity, and greater freedom. For these reasons, I'm pleased to award you the highest civilian honor the United States can bestow, the Presidential Medal of Freedom. Ask the military to come forward. I'm asking to read the citation.
The President of the United States of America awards this Presidential Medal of Freedom to Jens Stoltenberg. A visionary statesman and ceaseless defender of democracy, Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg has guided the NATO alliance through the most consequential decade for European security since World War II. When Vladimir Putin launched his brutal assault on the people of Ukraine, betting that NATO would break, Secretary General Stoltenberg proved him wrong. Under his stewardship, NATO has become stronger and more united than ever, and Americans for generations to come will benefit from the safer world he helped create. He demonstrates that the core truth of the alliance is as powerful now as it was 75 years ago. Together, we are stronger.
Uh-oh, can you do it? Don't screw it up, Joe, or you're toast. Oof. He did it! He did it! He pinned the tail on the donkey! He did it! I'm sorry, I couldn't resist. Oh my. Oh, it's serious. Congratulations, Jen, on your prize. Okay, I'll be right back. I have to take a break.
Maverick News. The world is watching.
The information war is raging. Truth without integrity is worth nothing. Maverick News. Because those who have power and those who seek it must be held accountable.
The world is watching.
Join our family of truth seekers. Donate today and add your voice to the chorus of Maverick Knights. Donate at maverickdonations.com. Truth. Integrity. It's the Maverick way. Maverick News. The world is watching.
So Justin Trudeau spoke at the NATO summit today as well. But in true Trudeau form, what do you think he spoke about? What would be the greatest threat to NATO? What would be the greatest challenge for NATO? I'll give you, anybody in the chat, let me take a guess. What's he talk about? What did he talk about today? Come on. Nope, no, close. Kenzie says inclusivity. No, pretty close. Jerry says gay rights and climate. Okay, the gay rights thing, no, but the climate change thing, yes. Here he is. Oh, my goodness.
NATO's Climate Change and Security Center of Excellence. And before I continue, I also want to recognize General Wayne Eyre, who is joining us here today at NATO and is attending his final NATO summit before retiring later this month. General, thank you for your many years of outstanding service, not just to Canada, but to NATO and to the world. Canada and NATO have long recognized an indisputable fact. Climate change is not only an existential environmental threat, but one of the defining security issues of our time. Le Canada et l'OTAN savent depuis longtemps que les changements climatiques sont non seulement une menace environnementale, mais aussi un des plus grands défis
I'd say
de
nuclear
sécurité
war would be up there,
de
you
notre
know?
époque.
Like,
Rising sea levels and increasingly frequent and intense natural disasters threaten security infrastructure like ports and military bases that keep our alliance safe. A warming Arctic is opening up a new arena of competition that our adversaries are eager to exploit, and climate-induced floods, famines, and droughts exacerbate inequality, fuel conflict, and drive displacement across the globe, all of which disproportionately harm marginalized and vulnerable populations. Overall, climate change risks creating a less stable, less prosperous, and less secure world. That is why we act.
just too hot, too cold, too wet, and too dry. And that's why NATO is at risk. Oh my God. I don't mean to be editorializing so much. This stuff, it just hurts my brain to just even listen to this stuff. The other big issue for Trudeau at NATO is that he is seen as a cheapskate. And that's because Canada still is not spending 2% of the GDP on defense. So here he is talking about how Canada is committed to spending 2%, but, or, you know, whatever, but no, they're not at 2%. I think they're at like I think we are at 1.4 or something like that of GDP. Still a sizable amount of money, but nowhere near what it's supposed to be. And the Trudeau Liberals have not been properly supplying our own military at home. Not to even talk about what we're sending overseas. We're not properly equipping our own military on the home front to defend us here. Here he is at NATO talking about the budget.
Leadership of the multinational NATO-led battle group in Latvia, our continued efforts to train Ukrainian military personnel through Operation Unifier, and our new defense policy vision, which invests $73 billion in defense over the next 2 decades, all demonstrate Canada's unwavering resolve to support the alliance. A resolve that continues to grow stronger. When we took office, Canada was spending less than 1% of its GDP on defense every year. But we vowed to change that right away, and we followed through on our word. We're investing more in our troops, in our capacity, and in our capabilities, all while continuing to provide assistance to our allies resisting Russian aggression. NATO is the strongest military alliance in the world. And to keep it that way, we must continue to step up individually and collectively to strengthen both our alliance and the collective peace it represents and protects. Canada stands with our NATO allies. Canada will always defend the values of democracy, freedom, and the rule of law, as it is more important today than it ever has been. My friends, we must be clear-eyed about the current state of global affairs. The long peace after the Second World War is over. We're living in an increasingly dangerous, unstable, and complex world. Cyber warfare, resurgent authoritarian forces, expanding regional conflicts, and everywhere increasing impacts of climate change, all represent growing threats to our collective security and our continued prosperity. This is the sobering reality we must all face. That's why Canada will continue to work closely with like-minded allies to tackle these challenges directly, to build a better world for all. We will grow our global partnerships, and we will always do what is needed to forge a stronger, more united NATO and to keep us all safe.
Okay. enough. We are living in an increasingly dangerous world. We do have geopolitical adversaries. We do need to keep our country safe and secure. We have national security issues. I am pro-Canada. I'm pro-USA. I want our countries to prosper and survive. We need to get real, though. Okay? So if we want a strong military, I think we need to focus on the military and less on whether it's going to rain or snow or get hot or get cold. Just saying. I think we need to just I think we need to get back to reality. That would be a really good place to start to fix everything. Let's get back to reality. Not irrationality, reality. Rational thinking, rational thought, rational politics, rational common sense thinking, rational ideology. Is Trump up yet? No, we're still waiting for Trump to arrive. I'll tell you this. NATO is succeeding in spite of itself and in spite of Trudeau. Probably in spite of Biden, too. Yeah, well, kind of. But especially in spite of Trudeau. They are succeeding. The truth of the matter is that I'm also seeing that we've been fed a lot of misinformation, disinformation, propaganda from all sides, including the Russian side, regarding this conflict in Ukraine. All sides are engaged in it. And the truth of the matter is, from everything I'm seeing, we're actually in more of a stalemate, and Ukraine has in the last couple of months been gaining some ground. Not just Ukraine, but NATO. And what do I mean? I'm talking about this. Russia has Putin has ordered a retreat of sorts along the border of Finland. He has pulled troops out of that area and is sending them to Ukraine. That is happening. And that indicates that they are also having some manpower or soldier manpower issues on the field. Maybe I can find this here. Here we go. Here's a headline. And I'm seeing this from a number of sources. Russia withdraws its troops from Finnish border after Finland joins NATO. This is from 2022. And just within the last... So that's an old one. And then there's been another report just within the last 24 hours saying that they have taken more of those troops and moved them over toward Ukraine. I've also come across some crazy numbers that maybe we'll get into tomorrow night regarding the numbers of Russian troops that have been killed and wounded. And Biden just touched on them there, saying 350,000. That's more than I've been hearing from some of the other online pundits. So I don't think that this is the, the giant Russian victory lap that they're supposed to be taking right now. This is a meat grinder over there. And this is not over. Far from it. And you're hearing the commitment here to supplying more and more weapons over the next year. I also came across this footage of an F-16 attacking the Crimea Bridge. I'm going to share that with you here now. Look at this. It looks like you tell me what you think of this. I'm going to look in the chat while I run this footage. of this F-16 attacking the bridge. You know, that's been a bridge that Ukraine has been trying to take out for some time. Look at this. Wow, that's a huge development, wouldn't you say? Measures. What do you think? Any comments from anybody in Rumble over here? Trump's still not there. Bring this up. Yeah. Linda, you are so right. That's not Ukrainians flying. Yeah, you know what? That's fake. But I showed it to you to illustrate something. Yeah, and Sam, you're right. It's totally fake, man. It's totally fake. All that footage fake. So, but I showed it to you because there's so much going on out there that is fake. And we've been exposed to a lot of it over the last couple of years. And I'm going to challenge everybody to try to keep an open mind as we get into things here over the next week or two. Because we have been lied to by all sides. And I keep trying to get people closer to the truth here. That is my commitment. I've been lied to. You've been lied to. We've all been lied to. And we can't make rational decisions at the ballot box. We can't get to a place of reason. We can't get to a place of reality if we are basing everything that we think we know on a lie or a series of lies. And footage like that is being used to convince people. And in fact, actually much worse footage. I will illustrate this in a variety of ways in the coming days. We need to start to rethink things just a little bit. Some truth mixed with lies. And it is skewing people's perspectives on all of this. So I am committed not to one side or the other. I'm committed to you, serving the public, and serving truth. Where are you, Donald Trump? Still waiting for him to arrive in Doral, Florida. Let me take a little break here again. We'll come back and resume on the other side of this.
The sharing of biased and false
news has become all too common on social media.
More alarmingly, some media simply aren't true without checking facts first.
Unfortunately, some members of the media use their platforms to push their own personal bias and agenda to control exactly what people think, and this is extremely dangerous to our democracy.
In an ocean of lies a century deep, the truth awaits. Choose not the red pill. Choose not the blue pill. For both are an illusion. Discover the power of M. The power of individuality. We are Mavericks. We are the way to the light. Fear not the storm. Join our quest for truth. Truth will set you free. Maverick News. The world is watching.
So yes, just everything that I just showed you right there about the war in Ukraine, wash it away. Because that was just an example of how easy it is to get some people to believe something that is completely fabricated. And I will show you in the days ahead other things that have been even more effective. So stick with me on that one and keep an open mind. Checking in on Doral, still waiting for the Trumpster to arrive. You know, Justin Trudeau at the NATO summit could go to the Calgary Stampede. He was avoiding it. It's because he knew that if he went to the Calgary Stampede this year, he would be heckled. And it would probably be a big security challenge. Just keeping him safe would be a major league chore. So, I thought when I came across this, I thought I got to show you this tonight because it doesn't matter if he's there or not. The people have spoken at the Calgary Stampede. And that's the way it is out there back in Washington, White House. Today's news press conference in the White House press room. Karine Jean-Pierre in an exchange with Peter Doocy. Here it is, and it's not looking good for Biden.
Well, he also said he's sharpest before 8 p.m. So, say that the Pentagon at some point picks up an incoming nuke. It's 11 p.m. Who do you call? The First Lady?
He has a team that lets him know of any news that is pertinent and important to the American people. He has someone that is decided, obviously, with his National Security Council on who gets to tell him that news.
Yeah, and he continued with that, and then finally she just folded up her book, took her notes, tucked them under her arm, and left without answering his final question today. Democrats pushing hard to get Biden to step aside. He's saying that he is not going anywhere. He repeated again today that he is not going anywhere. And Democrats, many of them now, seem resigned to having him lead them into the next presidential election. I don't know if he'll survive or not. Many of them seeing today as sort of they're saying, a lot of Democrats saying that today is the day that is a day of decision on Biden. But I'm not so sure. I think this is going to persist. This is going to continue for him. A lot of Democrats trying to say kind things. You know, he made it through that speech at the NATO summit. He got through it. There was one stumble that I picked up, but he is he's still struggling. I thought I was just waiting for him to screw up that thing with the medal. I really thought that was going to happen, but it didn't. Here, let me just see if I can cue this up. I had the better clip of the exchange there with Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre, but it's just this internet tonight is just not working properly. Here we go. Let me see if I can bring this up. No. It's okay. You got the gist, okay? Trump, are you there yet? Not quite. Oh, I think he's coming in a golf cart. Yeah, he's coming in a golf cart with a whole convoy of carts. A cartvoy. Donald Trump coming in a cartvoy. In Doral, Florida. Big rally down there. Here, I'll show you. See? They got a whole cartvoy going on. Picking up the tail end. Where is he? Is he driving or is he riding? He's probably being chauffeured. Vladimir Putin and Kim Jong-un were cruising around in that car that Putin gave Kim Jong-un, and Trump's riding around in his golf carts. This is kind of like Fantasy Island. Oh, I'm showing my age. Back to the 1970s. You're like, what's Fantasy Island? You young kids, you don't know. You just don't know what you missed in the 1970s. We're U.S. intelligence saying Russia is going to attempt to influence the 2024 presidential election, but they're being coy with the information they are releasing tonight. Here's what they're feeding the media. This coming out through ABC. Right there. Says Russia will try to influence 2024 election to boost a past preferred candidate, U.S. officials say, but intelligence community officials declined to name the candidate. Gee, who could they be talking about? So, you've got basically two main candidates, three if you count RFK Jr. One of them would be Biden. The other one would be Trump. Of the three, have any been presidential candidates before? No. Have any of the three, aside from Trump, have any of the three actually been the president before? Nope. So, if they are not naming the candidate, and it's a past preferred candidate, who would it be? Oh my God, I don't know. I guess they realize that the education system is inadequate, and I guess people can't even do basic math to figure that out. It's a little shell game, isn't it? So past presidential, would it be Trump? I don't know. It says here, this U.S. official says, we, quote, we have not observed a shift in Russia's preferences for the presidential race from past elections, given the role the U.S. is playing with regard to Ukraine and broader policy toward Russia, according to an Office of the Director of National Intelligence official, who shall remain nameless. The official did not mention any specific candidate by name, despite reporters pressing for a name. If you can't figure this out, you don't have very good powers of deduction. During the 2016 election, the intelligence community assessed Russia attempted to influence the U.S. election in favor of candidate Donald Trump. Officials from a vast swath of federal agencies said that Russia is taking a whole-of-government approach to influence the election that includes the presidential race, congressional races, and public opinion. It says here, we anticipate them to increase their activities as we get closer to the election, according to the ODNI official. The Justice Department on Tuesday released information about a Russian influence campaign related to the Ukrainian war, which officials pointed to as an example of how the U.S. says Russia is hoping to influence the election. Indeed. What else do you expect? We are at war. Yes, they are going to engage in information warfare, propaganda. Of course they are. That's why we all need to keep our minds clear, because we're all being subjected to a massive mind screw by all sides, because on the one side, they want your support. They want you to support funding it. They want you to support the war. On the other side, they want you to not support it because they want to win. So they don't want you to support it so that they can win. What we need to do is figure out what the truth is, what's really going on, so that we can make a decision for ourselves, not make a decision based on how we've been manipulated. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to try to get you accurate information and help you in ways that will allow us all to better identify propaganda, misinformation, government propaganda, foreign government propaganda, domestic influence over our minds, foreign influence over our minds, all of this, so that we can really begin to see things a little bit more clearly. That's my goal over the next while. Okay, so is Trump up yet? He's walking toward the stage as we speak. He is is he on the stage yet? I can't tell. I believe he is. Yes, he is on the stage. He is not speaking yet. I'm not going to go live yet because I don't want a copyright strike on the music. We will go to him when he begins to actually talk. Okay. So, but hey, they're not naming the candidate. Who would the Russians be trying to help? It's one of three, but we're not going to tell you which one. But they gave you a clue, right? But in that way, they're not influencing the election at all. It's just, okay. Even that is kind of funny, but it's so serious because the stakes are so darn high, aren't they? Okay, is he speaking yet? He's walking up. He's at the podium. Okay, let's bring the video up, and I won't bring the audio up, but then you can see Donald on the stage. Here we go. He's stepping up to the microphone. Bum, ba-da-bum, bum. Okay, it's a watch party out of Doral, Florida with the 45th President of the United States, hoping to be the 47th. Sometimes covering politics is just like covering sports. It's play-by-play action. He's driving up to the stage in his Cartvoy. All right, let's bring up some audio now and find out what the Trumpster is saying as he engages with the audience, microphone in front of him.
Beautiful, cold, very cold summer evening. Then right here in the middle of the 10th hole, beautiful hole, isn't it? Look at that lake, isn't it beautiful? On one of the greatest golf courses on earth, and we really want to thank all of the tens of thousands of people that showed up. This is a lot of people. This is a lot of people. As the world can see, we are under the leadership. The Republican Party is bigger, stronger, more vibrant, and more united than ever, ever, ever before.
Ever before.
Every day we are welcoming more Americans to our ranks, African Americans, Hispanic Americans, Asian Americans, young people, old people, union members, non-union members. Basically, everyone is joining our movement because it's a movement of common sense. It's common sense. Whatever happened to common sense in government? We've got it. We've got more than anybody's ever had. Meanwhile, the radical left Democrat Party is divided in chaos and having a full-scale breakdown, all because they can't decide which of their candidates is more unfit to be president? Sleepy, crooked Joe Biden or laughing Kamala? Laughing Kamala. As you know, in our recent debate, and in honor of all of you, I dealt Joe Biden, even according to the fake news media, the most decisive and overwhelming defeat in the history of presidential debates. I think so, right? I think so. And that was a big crowd that was watching. That was one of the highest rated shows ever on television, so I'm honored to be a part of it. I don't think he's too happy, but, you know, I like being a part of it. But even CNN said as I walked off the stage that it was one of the greatest performances they've ever seen. But it was sort of easy, if you want to know the truth. Our victory was so absolute that Joe's own party now wants him to throw in the towel and surrender the presidency after a single 90-minute performance. They want Crooked Joe out of the race. It's a shame the way they're treating him. But don't feel sorry for him. He's a very bad guy. He weaponized government. Remember that. He's a very bad guy. Don't feel sorry for him. So tonight I'm officially offering Joe the chance to redeem himself in front of the entire world. So Marco and Byron and everybody, here's what we're going to do. You guys can be referees if you like. Let's do another debate this week so that Sleepy Joe Biden can prove to everyone all over the world that he has what it takes to be president. But this time it will be man-to-man, no moderators, no holes barred. Just name the place, anytime, anywhere. And in the debate, Sleepy Joe also declared that he wanted to test his skills and stamina against mine on the golf course. Can you believe this? Did you ever see him swing? He's like this. Oh. That's why this evening I am also, and this is in honor of you and everybody, it is 45,000 people. That's a lot of people. I'm also officially challenging Crooked Joe to an 18-hole golf match right here.
It's so stupid. This
on
is so
Doral
stupid.
Blue Monster, considered one of the greatest tournament golf courses anywhere in the world, one of the great courses of the world. It will be among the most watched sporting events in history.
It would be.
Maybe bigger than the Ryder Cup or even the Masters.
It would be huge.
And I will even give Joe Biden 10 strokes aside. 10 strokes, that's a lot. That means 20 strokes in case you don't play golf. I will give him 10 strokes aside, and if he wins, I will give the charity of his choice, any charity that he wants, $1 million.
Oh.
And I'll bet you he doesn't take the offer. I would bet because he's all talk. But what that match will do is prove that Joe is, in fact, all talk and no action. But on many things, not just golf. When pilots walk into the White House, he says he used to fly planes. He didn't. When truckers come in, he says he used to drive a truck. He didn't. When Jewish people are here, he always attended synagogues, he said, the Jewish people. He didn't attend a synagogue. Did he ever see a synagogue? He doesn't know what a synagogue is. When black people come, he spent his Sundays in black churches. All of it's false, all of it's fake. He's a fake. Unfortunately, he was like that in Afghanistan. He was like that with Russia, Ukraine, and he was like that on October 7th and the attack in Israel. He didn't know what he was doing. But whatever else can be said about Crooked Joe Biden, you have to give him credit for one brilliant decision, probably the smartest decision he's ever made. He picked Kamala Harris as his vice president. No, it was brilliant because it was an insurance policy, maybe the best insurance policy I've ever seen, Marco. If Joe had picked someone even halfway competent, they would have bounced him from office years ago, but they can't because she's got to be their second choice. She has no choice and no chance. As vice president, Kamala Harris was given 2 jobs, 2 very important jobs, actually. First, she was put in charge of the U.S. border security and the border. And she never showed up. She's never gone. She never went there once. And the border's the worst border in the history of the world, not just in the number of years, the worst. We had the best border in history. She has the worst border in the history of the world. And then she was sent to Europe to deter Russia from attacking Ukraine. How did that work out? Not too good. Both times the result was a deadly failure. Since Kamala was made border czar, the Biden-Harris administration has lost track of an estimated 150,000 children, many of whom have undoubtedly been raped, trafficked, killed, or horribly abused. I think of it, 150,000 children are missing. They're gone. Nobody knows where they are. Many are not with us any longer. She's 100% for the Green New scam, supports banning the sale of gas-powered cars. Who wants to drive an electric car for the rest of your life? Does anybody? You don't want to drive for 45 minutes and then stop for 3 hours. Is that what you're saying? And wants the American energy industry totally shut down, starting with Pennsylvania fracking and Texas drilling. No drilling in Texas, no fracking in Pennsylvania. We just got a poll from Pennsylvania with 12 points up. That's a lot. We got a poll from Texas with 16 points up. And we have some great people from Texas here tonight. And as a senator, Kamala sided with socialist Bernie Sanders. He's a real socialist. He's serious. But not as bad as Biden turned out to be. Bernie's embarrassed by some of the things that Biden did because they push him around. It's the ultra-far left government takeover of the entire healthcare system. And I don't think Kamala Harris's California socialism is going to go down well with the people of Doral, the people of Miami, or the people of Florida. Because in Florida, we don't like socialism. We want our freedom, right? We want our freedom. And we have a lot of people, Marco, from Cuba, from Venezuela, from all over. And they don't want to hear about socialism or communism.
Keeps making a lot of references to Marco Rubio.
Despite all the Democrat panic this week, the truth is it doesn't matter who they nominate because we are going to beat any one of them in thundering landslides. And this November is going to be amazing. Going to be the most important election in the history of our country because our country's going down the tubes. That's a nice way of saying our country's not doing too well. We've never had anything like it. Our borders, our economy, the worst inflation ever. We have the politics on our side. We have the policies on our side that will make America great again, and they don't. They will only continue to destroy our nation. Our nation is being destroyed. Joe, Kamala, and the entire Democrat establishment have been caught red-handed in the thick of the biggest scandal and the biggest cover-up. It's a cover-up. That's what it is. And I said it when they hit this guy in the basement and then they cheated on the election. It's a cover-up. It's the biggest cover-up in political history. As you know, they are all co-conspirators in the sinister plot to defraud the American public about the cognitive abilities of the man in the Oval Office. Sometimes he's there, not there often. Laughing Kamala, L-A-F-F-I-N apostrophe. Laughing. Laughing Kamala was in on it. Crazy Nancy Pelosi, who, by the way, is also very cognitively impaired. Have you watched her lately? She's not doing too well. She's not doing too well. I think she's worse than Joe. You want to know that? She was in on it. Crying Chuck Schumer. You ever see him cry? He cries when the phoniest crying I've ever seen. Crying Chuck Schumer was in on it. Every Democrat cabinet member was in on it. They all knew this guy was grossly incompetent, and every Democrat in the House and the Senate was in on it. It was a scam. The American people can never trust this group of liars ever again. They've put our country at great risk and danger. That's why we are going to sweep them all out of office this November. I believe it'll be an election like no other. But the biggest problem for the radical left Democrats is that their candidates are very much, if you take a look, mentally deficient. Is that a nice statement? They are mentally deficient. I'm saying that because the other term is too tough. The biggest problem is that their policies are no good. Their policies are horrible. Americans want strong borders, not open borders. We want low taxes, not high taxes. You know, they want to increase your taxes 4 times by 4 times. We want a strong military, not a woke military. We don't have a woke. We have some woke generals at top, but they'll be gone so fast your head will spin. But we have a great military. We have a military that defeated ISIS in 4 weeks once I got in. We want no inflation, not 30 or 50% inflation, which is what you had. Think of it. You were destroyed. People were destroyed with the inflation. I don't even order bacon anymore. You know, bacon's gone up like 5. I said, it's too expensive. I don't want it. I don't want it. No, it's gone up many times.
Okay, let's just pull out of that for a while. We'll maybe come back to that in a bit. I'm going to take a little break. We've got other news that we'll dip into today. I think that was hilarious. Could you... Oh, I would watch that golf tournament. That matchup, that mano-a-mano debate. They could do it all in one shot, right? Go out to the golf course there. First play the game of golf, and then if either of them survive without having a heart attack, make them walk, no golf carts. and then do the debate at the end. Oh, no, even better. Play the game of golf. Play all 18 holes, walking. Then they have to like do shots or something back on the 19th hole. Then do the debate. That would be entertaining. I'll be right back.
Greetings, brave Mavericks. Our quest for truth continues. We go beyond fake news. Together we expose propaganda. Together we pull others out of rabbit holes. We are maverick thinkers. We are all unique individuals. Defenders of individual rights and freedoms. Credible. Trusted. Grounded in reality. Maverick News. Maverick News. Defending free speech. Free speech. Donate at freedomreporters.com. Do it now. Tomorrow may be too late. Maverick News. The world is watching.
Feel the vibrations. Our quest continues. The truth is out there. We are Mavericks.
This next series of clips and this accompanying information will take us down a path that will have us examining what Trump was actually talking about, socialism versus freedom. collectivism versus individual rights and responsibilities. Today, there was a hearing put on by the Committee on Education and the Workforce. And so the Health, Employment, Labor, and Pensions Subcommittee Chairman Bob Good delivered the following statement. This was after this is all focused on, let me just backtrack a bit. This was focused on what they're saying is the exposure of unions and anti-Semitism and big labor abuses. This was a very interesting session. I watched this earlier today, and the thing that struck me about it was not only all the anti-Jewish sentiment that has been exposed through this, but the layering of socialism, the eruption of socialism and its assault on freedoms within the country. The National Right to Work Foundation spokesperson who was there today, Glenn Tauman, was one of those who, I think his testimony today was among the most thought-provoking. During this session, they talked about Gaza. They talked about the way unions responded. And they also talked today a lot about, not, even before October 7th, the way Jewish union members are treated. And a lot of the focus was on that. But what this did for me was it made me think about a year ago when there was the huge Save the Children march that took place in Canada. And it was met with extreme resistance from the radical far left, the extreme left, who is made up of largely union members. How do we know that? Because if you recall, a year ago, just prior to that march, there was a Zoom meeting with a whole bunch of Canadian union heads, union officials, talking about how they were going to go out into the streets, masked, identities concealed, largely, with their supporters, many of them from the union movement, and basically try to stop what they saw as a Nazi rally, is the way that they were basically describing it in this big Zoom meeting. It was the far left in their minds versus the fascist Nazis. And it was the Save the Children march, which also, it's tied into LGBTQS plus progressive left identity politics, woke stuff. The point being that I'm just making is, until that moment, there was a lot of mystery surrounding who are these people who are, orchestrating, choreographing all of this this chaos in the streets and the pushback. Who are these people from the left? Where are they getting the organization from? Where are they getting the funding? How do they know? It's because it's coming from unions. These people are on the left, the far left, the radical left. And it was exposed to that Zoom meeting. So today, much of this was actually exposed through this hearing into unions and anti-Semitism. And it does tie into exactly what we're seeing on university campuses right now, what we've been seeing in the streets, because it's that left-wing element that is anti-Jewish, anti-Zionist, if you want to use that. And that is also an extension of anti-capitalism, imperialism, and which is code for anti-American, anti-Canadian, anti-colonial settler. Pastor Artur Pawlowski on here touching on that briefly last night. He's been out in the streets protesting on the other side, pro-Israel, right? And then talking about the pushback that he's been getting from the far left, because he is obviously more on the conservative side as a Christian, and he sees this as an assault on Christianity. The far left, secular, communists, essentially, and they're rejecting religion. Godless communists, if you will. You could have a debate about how godless they are, I suppose, but certainly they're secular. So they are rejecting Christianity. Why do you think they just turn a blind eye to churches being burned? Anyway, this whole thing today, this hearing, really, the guy for me that was like the highlight of this was, again, Mr. Tauman from the National Right to Work Foundation. Right to work. We'll get into what that is about, but here's the first clip that I have of Mr. Tauman. And this is him being questioned, and then listen to his answer. It isn't just about anti-Semitism. It's about unions and the power that they have as a collectivist force within American society, and I would say in Canadian society as well today.
In your testimony, that you say that since October 7th and the attack on Israel, labor unions have become organizers of hateful anti-Jewish and anti-Israel propaganda and resolutions. From the discussions that you've had with workers, and it's tragic to hear that you're getting phone calls from all over the nation, have unions, I'll ask the same question, have you seen where unions have stepped in to take steps to protect their Jewish members who are being discriminated against at this time?
Never once. And I have taken calls from all over the country, universities, hospitals, legal aid. Not one employee has ever said to me, oh, the union has helped me, or, oh, I can go to the union and they'll help me. None.
Mr. Tauman, I hesitate to bring this up, but there has been, I know that in my state, for example, there have been lawsuits and complaints against labor unions, particularly, we have areas where there are a high percentage of minorities, and yet the labor unions have a very low percentage of minorities in the single digits. And so there has been, there's often been a history, and I don't know if you have any comments about that. It's just the nature of this system to create that somehow emboldens discrimination within labor unions, and the history of that.
Sure. I think the bottom line is the old adage, absolute power corrupts absolutely. If I can tell you, pay me or you're going to lose your job because I can get you fired, I would call that absolute dictatorial power in the workplace. And unions spend other people's money. Justice Scalia, in a Supreme Court case called Davenport, recognized that unions have a unique privilege in this country, the privilege of demanding other people's money, which they can then go use on all of these sorts of far left intersectional woke politics, right? It's a lot more fun to go run around and riot on behalf of Hamas than it is to say, let's do a workplace grievance and see if we can get better wages in this place, because that's boring, that's work. It's more fun to be, intersectional leftists.
Yes, that is what I said a year ago when that Zoom meeting was exposed. I said exactly that. What are these union leaders doing? Their job is to represent their membership, the workers, from their locals or from their unions as a collective overall, to get them better wages, better working conditions, better benefits, basically, right? Deal with workplace safety, those kinds of things. That's their job. But unions have become a political force within our society. And they use the union dues from their members to get out there and engage in political activism. They've been doing it for decades and decades and decades. As it was indicated here during the hearing, since, the 1930s, even before, really. So that's the telltale thing here. The progressive radical left has been consistently positioned in opposition to conservatism, Christianity, traditional values, freedom. Why? Because they are collectivists. They believe in socialism, not in freedom, as Donald Trump just said. Their commitment to socialism and collectivism means that they don't really respect or even desire to promote in any way. They reject individual rights and freedoms. They flip everything upside down. That's where a lot of this comes from. They have the power. They have muscle in the streets. They have the organizational network set up for strikes and protests by extension. And that is where a lot of this organization comes from. The tents, all uniform, they help coordinate a lot of that stuff. The buses to bring people in for coordinated, choreographed protests. That's why you see a lot of the organization in the streets. It isn't just the unions, it's these other political activist groups as well. And maybe you support it. Maybe you think that's a good thing. But I bet you a lot of you don't even realize that what you're watching is unions in action, even behind the scenes, helping all of these things along. Not the only organization, but a pretty powerful part of it. And certainly the protests that they tried to arrange a year ago in opposition to that Save the Children marches all across Canada, that was coming from the unions and the progressive extreme leftists within the union movements. You may recall. This also exposes exactly that. These things over time begin to make sense. These old labels, fascism, communism, they don't really work anymore because we are seeing this convergence happening, right? The extremes on both sides meeting, because whether it's fascism, which is collectivism, or communism, they both end up trying to affect change or affect this and support their positions through authoritarianism. Their systems are predicated on coercion and authoritarianism, totalitarianism. The point is, this is not just about Gaza. This is not just about anti-Semitism. This is about the politics. This is the other thing that I think we need to keep in mind, and this is my analysis / editorializing a little bit. We need to be focused on this from the perspective of looking at this as the politics, not the people, not ethnicity, not just religion, not just these things, but the politics behind all of this. This is collectivism. This is communism in play. As I've said a number of times over the last, especially couple of weeks, what we're witnessing on these campuses is an extension of what happened in Gaza, which was the spark that ignited a global attempted communist revolution, or at least a new chapter in that global struggle for a one world communist government. Here's Mr. Taubman again, another clip that I think will help provide a little perspective.
Testimony, Mr. Taubman, you mentioned how some American unions are now discriminating against and threatening Jewish workers, and that has been especially prevalent following the October 7th attacks on Israel. What legislative reforms do you suggest to Congress that we should consider to protect workers' rights with respect to unions?
Thank you for that fantastic question. Number one, certainly, is a national right to work law. This shouldn't be a state issue. This shouldn't even be a partisan issue. Nobody tells you you have to join a specific church or a specific group, or you have to pay money to a private organization. That doesn't happen anywhere else in American life except for the privileged labor unions that have been doing this since the 30s and the 40s. That's the first thing, pass a national right to work law. The second thing is, if you're not going to pass a national right to work law, there are things like recertification elections automatically. Every member in this room stands for an election automatically every 2 years, every senator every 6 years. You know how often unions automatically stand for re-election? The answer is zero. They never have to stand for re-election unless the employees can band together to throw them out. And in a place like MIT with thousands of grad students that rotate through for 1 or 2 or 3 years, that will never happen. Ronald Reagan said the closest thing to eternal life on earth is a government program. I can tell you the closest thing to eternal life on earth for these unions is to represent a bunch of graduate students.
Thank you.
So unions, I would say, have a place, I suppose. They have been effective in securing higher wages for workers, better, working conditions. I would say that especially for low-skilled workers, they have been very effective because it's the collectivism in that way that, and the threat of withholding labor that is what gives the workers power. When you have no leverage, when you have no power, when you are a price taker in terms of wages, when you don't really have skills and you need to work on an assembly line in a low-skilled or no-skilled labor job, then it's, unions, I guess, play a role, especially when there's an abundance of labor and you're easily replaced. Otherwise, the union can't protect you. But that is, a larger part of the issue here. And what Mr. Taubman is talking about with these right to work laws in the United States, they are a contentious issue with strong arguments from both supporters and opponents. So I just thought we could take a look at that issue just briefly, and then I'm going to tie this back into what happened during the pandemic. Individual freedom. Supporters argue for those in favor of what they call right to work laws, individual freedom. Supporters argue that these laws would protect workers' rights to choose whether or not to join and financially support a union. They believe that majority union membership and dues infringe on personal freedom and autonomy. Advocates claim that right to work laws can attract businesses and promote economic growth. They argue that these laws make states more attractive to companies because they reduce labor costs and increase flexibility in hiring practices. Advocates say that right to work laws can create jobs. Proponents assert that right to work laws lead to higher employment rates. They believe that by lowering the cost of doing business, these laws encourage companies to hire more workers. And these laws would provide, where they are in place, they do provide union accountability, which Mr. Taubman just alluded to. Otherwise, you don't have even elections within the union to replace union leaders. They're sort of there for life in a dictatorial role. Supporters argue that the right to work laws make unions more accountable to their members. Without guaranteed dues, unions must demonstrate their value to attract and retain members, potentially leading to more effective and responsive representation. So those who oppose right to work laws on the union side say that these laws weaken unions. They argue that these laws weaken unions by reducing their financial resources because they can't compel people to join the union. Have you ever been a member of a union? You join a union shop, you don't really have a choice. At least in this country where I've worked, you don't really have a choice. They're going to take your union dues whether you like it or not. Unions rely on dues to operate and effectively represent workers. Right to work laws can undermine their ability to negotiate for better wages, benefits, and working conditions. And the union leaders say that these laws lead to what they call a free rider program. They say that the right to work laws create a problem where workers can benefit from union negotiated contracts without contributing financially to the collective. And this can lead to underfunded unions and decreased collective bargaining power. I mean, if you only have half the, 70% of the union membership being part of the union and the other 30% not paying dues, not participating, not really being represented, but still benefiting from the higher wages, then that's what they would say is a free rider. And the unions say that these laws would lead to lower wages and benefits and workplace inequality, they say as well, because opponents believe that the right to work laws exacerbate workplace inequality. They argue that these laws can lead to a race to the bottom in terms of labor standards, as companies may exploit the reduced bargaining power of workers to cut costs. So in essence, the debate over right to work laws centers on the balance between individual worker freedom and the collective strength of unions. And supporters prioritize personal choice and economic growth, while opponents emphasize the importance of robust unions for protecting workers' rights and ensuring fair compensation. The thing that you have to keep in mind is when you join a union you're actually giving up your rights. You're not gaining rights. You may be gaining a higher wage, but you have given up your rights as an individual. Because you're signing over. When you sign up to become a member of the union and you pay your dues, you are actually signing over your rights as an individual to the union, to the collective, and the union then has your power. They represent you. You don't represent you anymore. We saw during the pandemic that union members actually came out and got the short end of the stick. Think about this. This is important. We've touched on this once before in the program. During the pandemic, unions here in Canada, I think in the United States as well, they failed workers who did not want to get the thing in the arm. They failed workers who were opposed to masks. The unions didn't stand up for people on that side at all. Quite the opposite. They supported getting the thing in the arm. They supported masks. But because those people, those union members who were opposed to those things were part of the collective, part of the union, they did not have the right to sue the employer for anything that was done in that regard at all, because the union represented them. And by being a member of the union, they were no longer allowed legally to sue the employer. It's a true thing. This is something that people don't think about. You have to rely on the union to represent you, not just because of, not just in a scenario like we saw during the pandemic, but for all things. Pretty much all things within a workplace, they represent you. You can't go to the employer really and demand like a higher wage. That's not your place. You get what everybody else gets. Maybe you're 10 times smarter than Joe next to you. Maybe you're 15 times more productive. You might produce 50 times more than the guy next to you. But you're going to get the same as the guy next to you because you're part of the collective. Now, maybe that's fair, maybe it isn't. That's open to debate. But during the pandemic, people found that that there was nothing they could do to challenge the employers or challenge the workplace policies even during the pandemic. And it's because of this collectivist mindset, this collectivist support approach. Collectivism, unions. There are pros and cons to being in a union, especially if you're a low-wage, in a low-skilled industry, and you don't have a lot of skills to offer. Maybe just the only job you can get is a low-skilled job. You see what I'm saying? But there are also downsides to it. And what Mr. Taubman is touching on here is the dangers of collectivism, and the way that we as a society are giving up our collective rights. I've also seen some people, organizations, one in particular, I don't even want to mention them because I don't want to direct you to them, but they advocate for you signing over you sign up to join their collective, and then they're going to represent the Canadian people as part of a collective political solution to our problems. And I'll tell you right now, that's not democracy. What you're doing, if you sign up with those people, if you come across them and they want you to sign up for a collective of some kind, I would advise you not to do that, because you're going to lose your voice. You're going to lose your right to vote. They're going to represent you. It's not democracy. It's the opposite. It's communism. They're just not telling you that. They are deceiving people. Just letting you know. I'm just really even reluctant to tell you who they are. Maybe you've already figured it out. We've talked about them before here on the program. I will be right back. I hope that wasn't too much cerebral talk there. But some of the stuff we got to look at.
Greetings, brave Mavericks. Our quest for truth continues. We go beyond fake news. Together we expose propaganda. Together we pull others out of rabbit holes. We are maverick thinkers. We are all unique individuals, defenders of individual rights and freedoms, credible, trusted, grounded in reality. Maverick News, Maverick News. Defending free speech, free speech. Donate at freedomreporters.com. Do it now. Tomorrow may be too late. Maverick News. The world is watching.
I noticed in the chat earlier somebody was asking me, I saw it fly by in the comments, what do I think of the secret meeting that Chrystia Freeland was involved in, where they were, I guess, trying to find a way to turf Justin Trudeau? I suppose it depends on how you view the meeting. I guess there was a meeting in Chrystia Freeland's backyard. I think that's what was being referred to. This happened after that Liberal by-election loss. Was that about a week and a half ago? In the riding of Toronto St. Paul's. That had been a Liberal stronghold for like 3 decades. It's now Conservative. It flipped. Liberals, huge loss. A sign of things to come. A bellwether riding for sure. Tells you what's coming down the road for JT. Likely. Liberals are nervous. So there was this meeting that took place in Chrystia Freeland's backyard. It took place between Freeland and some members of Liberal Party's Toronto caucus. It was chaired by Scarborough-Guildwood MP John McKay, who heads the 416 Liberal caucus. And McKay, as far as I know, he's refused to comment on this. Now, Freeland came out of it and expressed her unreserved support for Justin Trudeau, saying they're all in and they're going to support him for re-election. And even though she was asked repeatedly, do you think he should step down? She would only say, after, the meeting was revealed, that it was up to JT to make that decision for himself. So what do I think of it? I think they're all sitting around I think they were sitting around in the backyard talking about why he should probably leave. But Justin Trudeau, with that name, is very powerful. He is in Canada political royalty because of the legacy of Canadian political propaganda and this strange reputation, image, I guess. It's all about Trudeau mania from the Pierre Trudeau era that is still with the Canadian people. So yeah, I think they were sitting around in that backyard with knives out, trying to figure out how they could stick them in Justin Trudeau's back and get rid of the guy. That's what I think is really going on. I think it's still going on, and they're just too afraid to say it out loud. Rightly so. If they were to say that, heads would start to roll. You're hearing rumblings, but nobody's brave enough to come right out and firmly oppose him at this point. And make no mistake, folks, he may well recover. Politics is a strange game, and things can change quickly. And we just saw in France those dynamics in play. We saw what everyone thought was going to be a right-wing government shift with Marine Le Pen. Instead, what did we get? We ended up with a far left-wing coalition government where the left came together in opposition to the right-wing groundswell and still managed to end up defeating them and seizing power within France. And when you say left-wing, you might as well say right-wing, because their policies, their ideology converges these days. It's the communists with the fascists. It's communo-fascism. And this means as well, what are you going to get? You're going to get more and more of the same problems that were giving rise to the far right, if you want to call it the far right. Immigration, socialism, money printing, inflation, free stuff for everyone, destruction of the economy. So don't count JT out, because that's what's been keeping him in power anyway. The NDP, the far left socialists, the progressives who were in that Zoom meeting, who were out in the streets opposing the Save the Children march a year ago, the very union people who they're talking about in that committee hearing today. It's don't count him out. He has a political strategy. He will figure out some way. He'll come up with some wedge issue, and he will drive that in with a sledgehammer as we get closer to the election. You will see. Will it be successful? Depends on what that issue is and how the Conservatives are able to counteract it. Now, everybody says, well, it's a uniparty. Yeah, sorta. But no. There will be change if you vote for Pierre Poilievre and the Conservatives. There will be change, especially in the way that the economy is handled. I'm not so sure it's going to make much of a difference on the immigration front. I'm not sure anyone at this point can put the cork in the bottle, or the cork in the, or maybe put the finger in the dike, right? You know the story. Harper was the last prime minister who was sort of tempering the numbers on the inflation and the immigration side. But once he was gone and we got JT in there, it was just like the floodgates were opened. And here we go, and it's over 1 million a year now. And I don't know that Pierre Poilievre is going to change things in that regard at all. But on the economic side, certainly, maybe he'll reduce the inflation somewhat. And the PPC, the People's Party of Canada, will they I don't think they've got a shot at even a single seat. Again, I think they'll, when I'm looking at the polls and the way things are going, I think they had their chance during the pandemic. And I think that I'd be very surprised if they even won a single seat. And the United Party of Canada under Grant Abraham, not sure. I want to get him back on the program to talk about politics and even what we've seen in France. So we'll see what happens with him and his new party. There's a lot of work to be done by him between now and Election Day, just to get his party established and known and promoted, let alone get anybody elected. So a long road ahead for the United Party of Canada. And Arthur Pawlowski last night talking about just that. He says, don't give up, vote. I agree. But it's going to take time. And it will take perseverance, determination, commitment. Let's go back to Trump and see what he's saying, shall we? Pick up his speech in Doral, Florida.
The world.
Speaking about
They're
immigration
the biggest and the worst, and we got them living in our country. They actually put down 2019, Trump, no terrorists, zero. I don't believe that, but that's what they have, and that was done by Border Patrol and others, State Department. I'll take it. I don't believe it, but it was very close to nothing, and they actually have zero terrorists came into our country. We were tough on it, and we would not have Russian warships and nuclear submarines surrounding Cuba 60 miles off our coast. You know that, right? For all of you people in Cuba, congratulations. You're now being protected by Russia. Congratulations. Can you imagine that the press, the fake news, those people, they don't even talk about it. We have nuclear submarines and 5 warships in Cuba, and they don't even talk about it. If that happened to me as president, it would be the biggest story every single day. But they don't talk about it because they're fake and corrupt news. When I was in the White House, I canceled Barack Hussein Obama's deal with the Cuban dictatorship and reimposed tough sanctions on that regime. They were ready to break. They were all set, and then we had the election taken away, robbed, rigged. Joe Biden has gone weak and soft on Cuban communists, as you know better than anybody, so many of you here. And he's abandoned the brave Cuban dissidents while the Cuban people are suffering, starving, and dying in Cuba. Would have been all solved very quickly. As president, I will again stand with the people of Cuba in their long quest for justice, liberty, and freedom. In my next term, we will build a great iron dome over our country, a dome like has never been seen before, a state-of-the-art missile defense shield that will be entirely made in the USA, right here in your state, right here in Florida. We'll build a big section. You have a lot of defense. We moved a lot of companies into Florida for defense purposes. I will not cut 1 penny from Social Security or Medicare, and I will not raise the retirement age by 1 day. Biden is going to do that because he's allowing these people that come in to go on to Social Security and Medicare, to go into the hospitals. And, we want to be nice, but no country can sustain this. No country can sustain it. I kept that promise for 4 straight years, and I will keep it again. We have plenty of other resources. We're not going to touch Social Security or Medicare. If the millions of Biden migrants became citizens, Medicare and Social Security will be gone. They'll be gone. They'll be gone. We're going to rebuild our cities into beacons of hope, safety, and beauty better than they have ever, ever, ever been before. We will take over the horribly run capital of our nation in Washington, D.C., and clean it up, renovate it, and rebuild our capital city so that it's no longer a nightmare of murder and crime, but rather it will become the most beautiful capital anywhere in the world. Right now, if you leave Florida, oh, let's go, darling. Let's look at the Jefferson Memorial. Let's look at the Washington Monument. Let's go and look at some of the beautiful scenes, and you end up getting shot, mugged, raped. We're going to take over our capital, and we're going to run it tough and smart, and we're going to beautify it. We're going to get all the graffiti off the marble. We're going to fix the roads and the medians, which are falling down all over the streets. We're going to make our capital beautiful again. We're going to do the same thing with our cities, even though Democrat run. We're going to work with Democrat governors and mayors if we have to. On day one, I will sign a new executive order to cut federal funding for any school pushing critical race theory, transgender insanity, and other inappropriate racial, sexual, or political content onto the lives of our children. And I will not give 1 penny to any school that has a vaccine mandate or a mask mandate. And I will keep men out of women's sports. Can you imagine? Can you imagine even having to say that? I will fully uphold the Second Amendment. We will protect innocent life, and we will restore free speech in our country. And I will secure our elections once and for all. Our goal will be one-day voting with paper ballots, proof of citizenship, and voter ID. Very simple. But until then, Republicans must win. You must get out and vote. We want a landslide, and let's call it this: too big to rig. Too big to rig. Thank you. Look at all the front row Joes. Oh, wow. Wow, they've been to like 200 rallies. Thank you very much. It's a great honor to have you. Great. It's a great honor. These are real patriots. They make a lot of money, I guess, because they're at every rally. I go to California, I have a rally, I have the front row Joes there. If you took the 10 worst presidents in the history of the United States and added them up, they would not have done near the destruction to our country as Joe Biden and the Biden administration has done. Think of it. I used to say 5, remember? 6 months ago, I'd say 5 worse. I added 10. I could go higher than that. There's nobody that's done destruction to our country. And now we find out he probably doesn't even know he did it, okay? Joe, why did you do it? I did what did I do? So if you want to save America, get your friends, get your family, get everyone you know, and vote. You got to vote early, vote absentee, vote on election day, vote anytime you want, but vote and follow your vote. Make sure that it gets counted. You can do that. Follow that vote, because these people cheat like nobody's ever cheated before. Frankly, they're no good at policy, but they're good at cheating. And if you want to help us ensure election integrity, sign up at protectthevote.com. So in conclusion, from Jacksonville to Miami, from Tampa to Tallahassee, from the beautiful place that I know very well, destined to right here in Doral, we inherit the legacy of generations of American patriots who gave their blood, sweat, and tears to defend our country and our freedom. We stand on the shoulders of American heroes who crossed the ocean, settled the continent, tamed the wilderness, laid down the railroads, raised up those great, beautiful skyscrapers, won 2 world wars, and from right here in this beautiful state, launched our brave American astronauts to plant the stars and stripes on the face of the moon. Together, they made America into the single greatest nation in the history of the world.
Okay, so I'm going to pull out of that because of the music. I don't even like that music at the end, man. That I don't think it's right. It's just too sad. He needs to energize that more. Anyway, blah, blah, blah. And I'll get a copyright strike because I don't want that. And you know what he's going to say. He's going to do what? All together now. Make America great again. There you go. And that is how the speech ends. Every single time. And this is an age-old story too. You know, at least, how shall I put this? It is an age-old story where someone does something crazy. They get a lot of attention, sometimes notoriety, and they rise to fame, if only for 15 minutes. 15 minutes of fame. Such is the case with, what's her name? Haley, is it Haley Welch? Yeah, Haley Welch. The Hakatua girl. Maybe you've seen the original video where she goes a Hakatua into a microphone. Are you familiar with what I am talking about? Well, I would say that there is a sexual overtone to what she did with this video that went viral. Millions and millions and millions of views. But the thing is, this girl, she was being interviewed someplace just randomly, and she was asked this question, and she ended up going Haktua into the microphone, and that is what went viral. I'm trying to find the original video for you before I show you what happened today. And the thing is, I'm having trouble finding the original video because there are so many videos that have been made about the video that they've gone viral, and now the original video is being, well, it's lost. It's being drowned out by all the follow-up videos. Here, let me show you. Here's a here's just one story about what's going on. Haley Welch, also known as the Haktua girl, learns firsthand what it means to go viral. Okay. Do you know what are you familiar with this story? You must. Things gone viral. Everybody's supposed to know, but it's been, now they finally tracked her down. She did an interview on this show, which I found on Twitter and Instagram. Anyway, she's everything's gone nuts. You can go find the original video if you really want to find it. For the life of me, I can't find the original video. It runs in some of these other videos, but that's less important than what I'm going to show you at the moment. You want to go find it, you'll eventually find it. It did go viral. You have no clue? Oh my goodness, really? Let me see if I can find it for you then, so that you understand what it is I am talking about. The Haktua girl. I think this is it here. Yeah, here we go. Hang on. This is the video that everybody's been talking about for the past week. Here we go.
You got it.
What's one move in bed that makes the man go crazy every time?
Oh, you gotta give him that huck to and spit on that thing. You get me? You know how to answer this. You got it.
What's one move in bed that makes a man go crazy every time?
Oh, you gotta give him that huck to and spit on that thing. You get me?
So this girl did this video, like she just was asked this question on the street. But the next morning, she was worldwide famous. Went viral, that video. So as a result of that, she's been offered her own television series, her own reality TV series. She's, of course, was offered, some sort of a contract with OnlyFans, which apparently she's turned down. Well, she also just did this. This blows my mind. Maybe it shouldn't, but it does. Where did it go? Here it is here. Okay. She made this appearance at a bikini contest just to show up. They paid her $30,000. For a club appearance, 30 grand. She has her own merch now. She has some sort of a marketing team that she's working with. Some agency called The Penthouse. 30 grand to stand there and do that. That's the way it is on this, what is it today? It's July 9th, 2024. And the world is a crazy place. That in itself, to me, is, and somehow it's just, the world is upside down. But there you go. Her talent, what she'll be known for now, is going haktua into a microphone. Her claim to fame, her 15 minutes of fame. And with that, I will keep on trying to bring you closer to the truth tomorrow. I'll be back at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time right here on the Maverick News Channel. Thank you, everybody, for hanging out tonight. And thank you, everyone who went over to the other YouTube channel, Maverick Live, and subscribed there, and for watching over on that channel. Trying to grow that YouTube channel instead of the one where we are facing all of these ongoing restrictions. So truly appreciate that, and I will see you all back here tomorrow on the flip side.
This has been a Maverick Multimedia production.